Hello, Phil Swann with another episode of Together, where we look at well-being, good mental health, and the Christian hope. Now, you don't need me to tell you again that the news which we're surrounded and saturated with at the moment is pretty grim. And that sometimes, if it touches you, can touch you very deeply if at the same time there are other things going on in your life that maybe you feel rather discouraged about. And perhaps one of the hardest things is knowing how to make sense or how to cope with all these bad things, particularly if you maybe live on your own or you have a limited number of friends. It is a great thing to have a good friend. And I hope that in some way you do, or if you watch these videos and you really feel totally isolated, we'd encourage you to reach out to us. In fact, you can contact us at together@lfec.org. And we would do what we could to support you. Because one of the great things about having a good friend is you have someone who's willing to listen to you. I don't think anybody really understands it, but it's so important for well-being. But to have the privilege of being able to talk to someone who you trust, who you know is really listening about those things that really trouble you, can be a wonderfully helpful experience. A few days ago, I was meeting with some friends. I made some new friends, met some old friends. And the one thing that many of us had in common was that most of us either had been or were currently physiotherapists working in the health service. At least most were. And I was speaking to one chap who has a private practice and does a lot of work with elite athletes. And he was explaining to me that sometimes he'll find athletes coming in for treatment, but when he actually looks at what they're saying the problem is, there really isn't much in the way of a problem, that either he knows that they can take care of themselves or really there's not much to do. But he said, I've noticed over the years that quite often when someone comes in with a minor injury, the big thing they want to do is talk. Maybe they want to talk about their training, maybe something isn't going quite right, or maybe they've just got a worry in life. Talking about the things that trouble us is very important. And if right now you find yourself burdened with things and you're holding those things in, try to find a reliable friend, someone who you trust, and someone who you can talk to. The flip side of talking is the importance of being a good listener, though, isn't it? And maybe you find yourself in a different situation where you say, well, actually, I'm coping quite well, but I know people that aren't. And you're concerned and you have a heart for them and you want to support them. One of the best things you can do is listen. And being a good listener is a real skill. So easy, isn't it, when you listen to someone talking about their troubles, to want to jump in and try and fix it, to try and put it right. But invariably, when you really think about it, many of the big things in life we can't fix. But being a good listener and disciplining ourselves to listen and not jump in can be extremely valuable to someone. All of this reminds me of some words which we read in the New Testament, which are actually quoting verses in the Old Testament. And it's a warning, actually. And it simply says this: today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. And it's the reminder that God is talking to us. He talks to us all the time. There is one sense, you might describe it as a gentle whisper through the beauty of the world around us as he reminds us that he is there, as we see the stunning reality of sunset, sunrise, the detail in a flower, the sound of a bird singing. All of these things remind us of something of God. But God speaks to us not in a whisper, but clearly and directly through the Bible. And that's why it's so important to give yourself in life the opportunity to read the Bible. If reading the Bible is something you've never done, and of course you're aware that millions of billions of people over the years have been so comforted by parts of the Bible. Maybe there have been times when you've heard something and you think that's really wonderful. Maybe you've been to a funeral and you've heard Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And maybe there have been times when you thought, I'd like to look at that. I'd like to think about that a bit more. And yet you've never done it. Well, why not do it this week? If you haven't got a Bible and you'd like one, contact us together at lfec.org and we'll send you one. We'll send you a New Testament free of charge. And we'll give you some encouragement as to where you can start reading. When God is speaking to us, as he is when we read the pages of Scripture, that verse which I read a few moments ago reminds us, we're not to harden our hearts. We're not to be cynical. We're not to be outrageously critical. It doesn't mean you can't ask questions, and asking questions is important, and we will find answers. But we're not to dig our heels in when we hear clearly what God is telling us to do. Instead, we're to open our hearts and in faith embrace what he is saying. And when we do that, we find the great peace and the comfort and the joy which he speaks of. Well, it's a tough world, isn't it? It always is. But at times like this right now on the international platform, it really comes home that we really have made a mess of our world. And we need to hear the voice of God and the wisdom of God. Well, may God bless you and keep you this week. And remember, we're here for you. Don't be afraid to reach out to us. God bless.